Yes, a perfect day for ducks. All this rain. Now, it's not a perfect day to play baseball or a perfect day to go to the beach, but it's a perfect day to talk about science and why it rains. Alright, so here is, let's draw something here. So here's the sun, right? Sun's not green, but we're using green today, why not? So the sun is the heat source, right? It's going to heat up the oceans. It's going to heat up the lakes, the seas, the bays, any water source on Earth, right? It's going to heat it up. So, again, this is the radiation. We talked about that with thermal radiation, the flow of heat. This is the radiation coming from the sun. And it's going to make evaporation, right? It's going to create that warm air. The oceans are not boiling, but there is evaporation happening, right? Just like we talked about in other videos, what we did with when we boiled water on a stove. So here is this evaporation, this warm air rising with all this water particles. It's now vapor, and it's going to condense. It's going to condense as it gets higher up in the atmosphere, and it's going to turn into clouds. So let's look at that part. All right, so here's our cloud, right? And these are our water droplets. Now the water droplets, again, so the warm air, and we have the evaporation happening from the oceans, the ponds, the seas, wherever, even plants, right? Plants and trees will give off water, which we'll talk about in a minute. So as it rises, as it cools, the water will turn back into a liquid and cling to dust. It will cling to atmospheric dust. And the atmosphere is full of all kinds of dust and salt, right? There's even smoke and pollution up there, depending on where you live. So again, it's going to cling. It has to cling to something, or else it will just fall right back down. So the water vapors, again, they cling to dust, atmospheric dust, which is, again, soil, smoke, and so forth, microbes. And when there's enough of them, they will fall back down, right? When it gets heavier and heavier, the cloud will have too much rain droplets, and the rain will fall. That's the simple part of how it rains. Simple like that. So let's look at a harbor. Let's look at a harbor in Oyster Bay. Well, as the ocean heats up, in this case the harbor, the radiation from the sun will heat up the water and cause evaporation. Alright, so here we have a Nimbus Stratus Cloud. Or should we say clouds, right? So there are many types of clouds. There are at least 10 types of clouds in different tiers and different levels of the atmosphere. But the ones we're going to concentrate on is the ones that have the word nimbo in it. Nimbo or nimbus. So nimbo, nimbus, it's a Latin word, right, from the ancient Rome. Ancient Rome, the language of ancient Rome was Latin. And it also created, later on, the other Romance languages from Roman, Romance, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Romanian, for example. So, if we see nimbo or nimbus, these are rain clouds. And here is nimbostratus. It's like a flat cloud. It's like a blanket in the sky. And you can see it's getting dark. So, normally clouds are white, and they're white because the light from the sun, remember the light has a spectrum of colors. All the colors together are white. So when they enter the cloud, when there's little rain droplets in the clouds, the light will pass through them. But when there's a lot of rain droplets in the sky, so this is the one reason why they're gray and dark, when there's a lot more rain droplets, again, these droplets of water that are clinging to dust, when there's a lot more and it's heavier, the light can't penetrate through the cloud as much, and so it gets darker. That's the simple answer with that. So again, clouds are white because all the light from the sun is penetrating the cloud and it's scattering evenly. But when it gets darker, the light can't penetrate the cloud as much, and so it gets darker and grayer to our eyes. So nimbostratus, they'll give us rain, and many clouds will give us rain, but these are the ones that will give us a lot of rain. And here's one, cumulonimbus. Looks like an anvil, right? It's a beast. you see this in the sky and it's really dark, not only will it rain, but you can also get thunderstorms. So the cumulonimbus cloud is also called the thunder cloud, right? Maybe Thor's around, the god of thunder, if you like or you read Marvel Comics. So let's look at a few clouds in the sky. And here's some cumulus clouds. They're reflecting the sunlight in all directions evenly, so that's why they're white. So when the clouds do become darker and darker, as the water droplets condense more, they get darker and darker, and there's so much water droplets, they will turn into rain, and we can call them Nimbus clouds. Nimbus is a Latin word meaning rain. Alright, so here we have, and it's a little hard to see, but there is our Nimbus Stratus Clouds, right? It's like a blanket turning gray on the bottom. And by the way, I mentioned before this word, I'll write it down here, transpiration. Transpiration. So again, we said that the sun warms up the oceans, the bays, the seas, any water source, it will heat up. We also get water from plants and trees. So when that water heats up and evaporates, it's called transpiration. Let me bring that over more so you see it. Transpiration is the water evaporating from plants and trees. That's transpiration. So now we know why it rains. Again, just a review, the sun, the radiation, the heat source is going to heat up. It's going to heat up the oceans, any water source, and it's going to form clouds like we showed before. The water is going to evaporate. It turns into a vapor. It condenses into a vapor, and it condenses again when it hits cold air and turns into a liquid again, but it must cling to particles. It clings to atmospheric dust, and when there's enough of it, it'll fall as rain. Depending on the temperature, it could also fall as snow. So we'll talk more about clouds, because there are many different types of clouds, and we'll also talk about lightning and thunder. That'll be in the next video. Great job.